but this is different. This is Sean Payton. So you got to believe there's a lot of excitement going on with the Denver Broncos right now. And taking a look at a few of the things that they have to do. First of all, we know that even though Russell Wilson didn't have a great season, we know he's not going anywhere. That's the core. And I think, don't you think it's a little too early too? I don't, especially with Sean Payton. I don't really see this as a time to worry about drafting a future quarterback. Now maybe they can do something in the 4th, 5th, 6th round or something like that. But they got to try to win now with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I think Sean Payton takes that job because he believes in Russell Wilson. And I still think there's a lot of believers in Russell Wilson. And I don't think you can put it all on him. Definitely, I think he needs to play better football. There's some of the stuff you hear about him and how he's acting that needs to improve. But Sean Payton does not take this job without believing that he can turn him back around or even just get him back on the road. And I agree. I mean, when you look at this contract, getting rid of having another quarterback other than Russ play there in Denver is not going to happen for the next 2-3 years. It's just not financially possible with the contract that they gave him last year. They signed Jared Stidham to be the backup in case something goes wrong injury-wise. But they're not going to draft a quarterback this year with the idea that they'll be having a new starter within a year or two. That's not going to happen. This is Payton and Russ.
Yeah, and especially when you're in a situation with your draft capital. I believe it's pick 67 in the 3rd round. That's their first pick.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to do whatever they can to add some more players. I'll
tell you what, this roster, when I went over some of these needs and just breaking down, every team needs something, right? But Denver, this is a good roster. There are holes.
Yeah, they were close to winning what? How many of those games went down to the wire that they lost 90% of them?
With a quarterback that was playing about 40% of what you think his real capacity is. I don't think we even saw half of what Russell Wilson was in Seattle.
Yep.
And the question is, how far back up can he get? But if he just plays a little bit better, this team is above 500 because the roster is good, and they missed their number 1 running back for most of the year. So, and that Tim Patrick ACL injury that happened in training camp, that was a bigger injury than people thought. That guy is a big part of that offense, and I think Payton knew exactly what he was doing when he chose Denver. That he knows that this team can win even in that division.
You take a look at the rumors around Jerry Jeudy and maybe even Courtland Sutton, and I do believe them, because when you don't draft until the 3rd round, you got to decide if we're going to try to make this team better this offseason through the draft. Well, you have one of these two guys, especially with Patrick coming back, where it just would not be a surprise, especially considering Jeudy, they have to decide on pretty quickly, pretty soon on whether or not he's going to get a big contract. And they might decide, well, this is the offseason to trade him away. The team who gets him, it's up to them if they want to give him a new deal, but they don't have to for another year. And that makes the trade a little bit easier for the opposition to take in a player and then give up maybe a late 1st, 2nd round pick at the worst. So we'll keep an eye on that. So that could happen on draft day. It could happen in the next couple of weeks. And I actually think it's going to happen. And I say that too because they brought on Callaway. So he knows Callaway, Payton, obviously. Patrick comes back. And if you have Courtland or Jeudy, well, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with those 3 receivers. Right. I think you could definitely live with that. And then you've got Dulcich as a tight end receiver. So, and you get Javonte Williams back to go along with Pirine in the backfield. So, as you were saying, the roster doesn't look all that bad. And it's still even good enough where they can trade one of those 2 receivers for a premium draft pick.
Yeah, if they want another asset, and I think financially it makes sense because, like you said, the economics are a huge part of this decision. Every decision that you make for this roster, whether it's the draft or free agency, is going to come down to economics because of what you're paying Russell Wilson. And because that contract is so massive, you're going to have to find creative ways to save money. So they might not be able to afford Jerry Jeudy at some point. And like you said, I mean, this is the time to trade him, because if you are the team taking him on, you're not paying him premium money. The one issue that Denver's going to have is I don't think we've seen the best of Jeudy yet. It's still projection based. And
I agree.
Anyone that takes him on, it's still going to be a little bit of a gamble, because he has dealt with drop issues. We've seen multiple lower body issues, and he came into the league as a bendy, kind of unstable lower body athlete originally, and that can be an issue for a receiver that was so based on the ability to get open, run routes, get vertical. So it's going to be an interesting situation to follow. I'm sure they've already made their mind up with what they're going to do there. We just don't know it yet.
As far as the only big hole, though, on offense is right up the gut. Now, this all depends on what they think about Wattenberg. So It's the same GM. So, look, how surprised were you that they actually used the 5th-round draft pick on Wattenberg? But if they like him, then maybe they don't need a center. But if they've had a year to look at, now, Kyle Fuller shouldn't even enter into this conversation really anything more than just a number 2. And who knows? Maybe it's, hey, let these 3 guys battle it out in camp, and we'll live with that for another year. But if they're looking to upgrade, drafting a center in the 3rd round wouldn't be a surprise.
Not at all. And, if you look at Sean Payton's history with New Orleans, when he was there as the head coach, and he had a say in the draft. I know Mickey Loomis called the final shot, but they dumped premium resources into the offensive line year after year.
Yep.
And you look at this offensive line, the big contract to McGlinchey, a day 2 pick on Miners, a big contract to Ben Powers, a 1st-round pick on Garrett Bowles. That is what I think Sean Payton believes in. The one hole, like you said, is at center. And at the very least, there's a competition there. There's 3 guys that can win the job, and you're going to let them battle it out, and that usually brings out the best in all 3. I think they can go into the season with one of these 3 guys. And I don't think you can go into the draft saying we're going to find our starter that's better than these 3. So I don't see them using a pick on a center, even though I do consider it a need.
On defense, edge rusher is definitely a priority, because, you look at it, they've got, and it's interesting, too, because just a couple of years ago, they had a smorgasbord of edge rushers. And now they basically don't really have any. Browning, you still don't know what you have there. Benito, he's still too young. And Gregory, you just can't count on. So
he's volatile. Yeah, Gregory is volatile. Browning is still relatively new to the outside linebacker edge position. And you don't know. He didn't hold up for the entire year. You don't know if he can all of a sudden take on that kind of position and last all year. And Benito, I think he was drafted. I think you're going to get exactly what you thought you were going to get out of him, a rotational piece, not an every down player. And I think that's definitely my number 1 need for this defense. If you get the best out of Randy Gregory, then hey, you have an embarrassment of riches if him and Browning can hold up. But you're talking about 2 major question marks on the outside.
Yeah, they need Benito to break out. That's what they really need. They're set on the inside with the Singleton move. On the defensive line, that's another look. They need the 2 picks from last year, just like you said with the center. They need these 2 picks to step up, especially the kid from Iowa State. That's somebody that has the potential to step up. If that's what they're counting on, then I think they can live with it for another year. But that all depends. So I think they're okay there. I don't think this is the year that they mess with it. They hope those 222 draft picks will give them an idea of what they have moving forward. And then you look at the secondary, and all in all, it's really not in bad shape. Mathis was again a reasonably high pick, so that's there. You got Williams, and he's okay. And then you have one of the better corners in football. And it's up to Stearns now. Does Stearns win the job? Turner Yell might even battle for playing time, and you have Justin Simmons. So, I don't think. Look, you could always add a little bit of depth here and there. Maybe if they're not confident Stearns can be the guy. If they want a nickel back, I could see that. But I don't think it's like, we've got a gaping hole in any of those spots.
Yeah, I think that's the theme of the defense. They're going to go into this draft saying we do not have a gaping hole. We're not going to shop hungry at any spot on defense, but we could always use more depth. And what team doesn't say that right now? That's kind of what I started off with saying. you don't really see a gaping hole anywhere on offense or defense right now. That's why I think they're in a good spot. But again, it's going to come down to Russ and how much he can mesh with Sean Payton.